All right. We're going for the after show now.
Yeah.
So how this turns out. So what do you think? How do you think it went? I seen you did a doodle. But
Yes.
you do
It's so
during all of
funny.
our shows? Is this
I
something that
do.
you sit there do? You're like Tyler the Medium guy.
Yeah.
There you go. Oh.
I just start doodling, and then so when you're talking, I write down a little note, like we touched upon belief systems, self-worth, and then we talked to you were talking about past and home life, and there's this light now coming up. I mean, it just,
and you got your money tree.
I have my money tree.
That's awesome.
Break the pattern. Yes.
Well,
yeah.
I think it went really well, but there was some stuff we could have elaborated on, which was, the part 1, part 2 thing. But when you're on the show, it goes really, really fast. But I liked the points that you brought up about the relationship with money. And I feel like we should have covered that probably a little bit more. Like, I think that people need to really reevaluate their emotional attachment and relationship. But even to take that further, empaths have a really hard time with that. We talk about them having a relationship with, people, but empaths read energy all the time. And so that relationship with money energy can also be really, really strong. But I noticed the pattern of people who make a lot of money have a really good relationship with money. And we didn't get to cover celebrities and people like that. Because do you ever listen to celebrity interviews? They talk about money really different. Or Susie Orman.
Oh, yes. Yes, I saw her live once.
Yeah, they're constantly talking about money as an energy. And that's really interesting because when we were talking about when I got my couch and rug and all that kind of stuff, that I was really into Susie Orman at that time, and I wasn't relating the two together at the time, but later on I thought about it. I was into the metaphysical, of course, because that's what I did. And then I was reading all these financial books because I was also interested in that. And then I started seeing a pattern come together where I'm pretty sure Susie Orman doesn't talk about anything metaphysical, nothing I've seen. Necessarily, it's not like she's a psychic or a guru or anything. And then you have the metaphysical side where they're talking about energy, but they're having the same language.
Right.
Did you notice that? They're having the same language. So
the flow of it, the flow of the energy, the flow of money, and as you're talking about the emotional aspect and the ties to it and breaking patterns, I think that a lot of people, like the maybe stars who have a lot of money, as you're touching upon that, I think that a lot of them too had to overcome some old patterns. And the ones who didn't, like maybe the young stars who got all this money all of a sudden and didn't learn about money. I mean, now look at
they lose it.
They lose it.
I mean, you see that happen over and over again. If you don't resolve your relationship with money and get that whole concept down, people who, you see it on the lottery winners all the time too. I've seen some shows where they'll win the lottery and then 5 years later they're entirely broke again. They're not quite getting it's the whole paper concept again. So that's really interesting. But your husband, I was going to ask you because you brought him up and said he had a really good, and that's one of the parts of the show that was my favorite was when we're talking about, your emotional attachment with money. Because I found that really, I kind of discovered my own emotional attachment when I was putting so much weight on anything, and it felt like it was always pulling me down. And no matter, I don't even think I was going into it at the time thinking, okay, I need to change my relationship with money. What I was trying to do is I was trying to get the weight, it felt like an anchor. So I was trying to clip the weight away from me. So in order to make it feel like it wasn't such a weight, I had to look at it, change my perspective on what type of power I was giving it over me, So that started my whole, where I had an emotional detachment with it. And then all of a sudden when that happened, it just was easier to get and easier to get. And it just kept coming in. And I actually seen an interview with somebody, now I can't remember who it was, not very long ago. She was just talking about how once she made her first no, it was Bethany Frankel. I don't know if do you know Bethany Frankel?
I do know.
I actually love her. She's a really great businesswoman, and it was kind of fun to watch her journey going from, struggling to ridiculously rich. And she said it was, and I know this to be true from my own experience and from other people who I know have kind of self-made. She said, once I made it in business, once I made a success, once I made a certain amount of money, I just all of a sudden had the confidence I could always do it. And that happened to me too. Once I hit a certain level, it was just like, well, I knew that I could constantly, that confidence was there, but your money, your perspective of it is different. That emotional attachment to it is released. And then it becomes something that you can maneuver and free flow. So like when you're working with the universal laws, for me, it feels like, I have more control over the river of it, over the river of that energy when I have no attachment to it. It's more like it's out here and I feel like I have a lot more control over how the river flows. I guess I'm so aware of universal laws on energy. I don't know. Maybe I'm so far out there at this point that they're all just going, this is not helpful whatsoever. I have no idea what she's talking about.
Well, okay, so I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about the universal laws. I just know how I feel and what I see. So as you talk, I see. And so I can see, first of all, you talked about stepping away from the emotional aspect of money. So for me, it's like when you bring awareness to anything, you shine a light on it, you separate yourself from it. Then you're not in it, so you're not like in that stagnant energy. You separate and you look at it as a separate thing, and then you realize, oh, like you said, I can control the flow. So you were aware, then you took action. Not just sitting in it, not wallowing in it, not saying, I don't have enough money, I don't have this, I don't have that. Because, right, we know whatever we put our mind to, we're going to get it or not.
Let's not get all crazy. At some point in time, we always think we don't have enough money. So I wouldn't go that far. I mean, those right. My mind or have as much as it has everybody else. But my mind is constantly trying to figure things out. So I'm such a control freak in that regard of like, not a control freak, but I'm constantly like, why? And so I pick everything apart. Yeah. And then I see where the working parts are. And then it's like I put it back together. So yes, I did have awareness of it. And then it was just like, then I kept testing different things, and I kept thinking there's got to be a better way. And then I'd read the books and I'd watch people around me. There's gotta be. And then I would test different things, and then I just hit upon it, which basically came down to my relationship with money.
And that's what I'm saying. So again, you were aware, and the why, the whys are so cultivating. So you ask why, you get an answer, and then you ask why again. And I had just read an article. One of my favorite things to read is entrepreneur.com. I love their website. So much great information. And somebody had wrote, when you come to a decision, ask why. Why is this good for you? Ask why 5 times. Because every why is like cultivating. So it gets you deeper and deeper to an answer. So you naturally did that. And I know you still do, like, oh, this doesn't work. Why? Let me go in and figure it out. So, so the awareness, the taking action, and then that brings confidence naturally, like yourself, like you said, Bethany Frankel.
Well, and then the interesting thing is, and I know we're going to talk about universal laws again, but, I really do relate a lot of what I do in my life as far as what I'm bringing into my life on the physical plane I don't view any of those things as physical. To me, it's all working with the Universalize, and everything around me is energetic. And the thing about the touching upon the magical for a minute, which we didn't, I try to keep the shows so that they're kind of everybody. I hate it when you listen to metaphysical people and they start talking about like, the veil of this wonderful thing, or some where they start talking about metaphysically, and then you're just like, I like don't even know how to relate to you or work this into my everyday life. But so I try to keep it very, so that everybody can understand and work it in. But when you do work with when you really truly understand that there's something, this is where I'm going to get all metaphysical, behind the curtain, that's actually bringing money in and out of your life that you're not taught about. When you really truly get that concept that there's got to be something more, because if that wasn't true, then why would some people who shouldn't necessarily have a lot of money do? And why should the other people who should have money because they work so hard don't? When you start like questioning all those things, like none of that's adding up, so there must be something else to it. And then you start realizing that it's, this universal law of flow, how you're viewing it, that money's actually an energy, it's not a thing. Then it becomes magical in a sense. And we're always taught, you're taught about how the Easter Bunny's not real and how Santa Claus is not real. And I think that is the worst things that parents can do. I let my kids believe in the Easter Bunny and Santa literally as long as they possibly could, because I wanted them as adults to grow up feeling that magical feeling, because there's still a lot to that. There's still a lot that people don't know. There's still a lot of how you create life that is very magical when you're working with universal laws. And it literally, I've worked with students that, and we really need to do a money class or something, or like a universal laws class. But I've worked with students that have just literally come back and go, I feel like magic. And I'm like, I know, it's weird, right? But when you start thinking things and it actually starts happening, and I tell people this all the time, it happened at dinner last night. I was sitting, it's happened so much. My thoughts literally just happen. I'll be like, okay, I really am tired. I don't want to get up and shut that light off, but it's wasting electricity. I need to. And somebody will walk by, like this just happened not very long ago. My dad walked by, shut the light off. Never even asked him to. Weird, because he doesn't go around shutting off lights. Sitting at dinner last night, and I'm, at the table, and I thought I need to get up and get a paper towel. And my husband gets up to get a drink of water, and I kid you not, he ripped off a paper towel just for me. He didn't get one himself, didn't give one to anybody else, sets it by my plate. And I was like, oh, well, guess that's taken care of. And you start going, yeah, you kind of feel like magic when that stuff happens. So it's sad to me that that gets disregarded. And it's trained out. Oh yeah, the Cinderella is not real, and this isn't real Easter Bunny, all that, because there's something to it as you get older. It's just different. They just don't come in a bunny suit. I don't know. That was a whole different weird thing. But when you get into Universalize and you start working with them, you start seeing things happen. And I think that's why The Secret did really well. I mean, adults. It's fun to feel that energy and the flow and to be tuned into that. And it feels good to feel like you have control. And by having control, you're releasing control. Once you release control, once you release it, then you have it. That's hard to wrap your mind around. You know what I mean? Especially if you like, I like to be in control. That was really hard for me. I worked on that a lot. I really did. Yeah. That was a whole different conversation, wasn't it? I just you don't work with universal laws at all? Like, you don't think about it, and you don't like, I mean, with visualizations, your thoughts becoming a reality, that doesn't.
Well, I do, but I guess I didn't call it universal laws, or
people might not call it universal.
Yeah. No, I do. I'm very much aware.
I thought so, but when I'm having this conversation, you're just like, Huh.
No, I'm very much aware, but I don't call it anything. I'm, if I want something, I work to manifest it, and then I release it. And so that's my method. If I want something, I start with gratitude. I'm grateful for what I already have. I'm grateful for what I already have. And then I take action to manifest what it is that I would like. And then I learn to release it and ask, may this or something better come my way.
That was the key, though. May this or something better, which is what we were talking about. And then again, that is working with Universalize, because you're very open to it maybe not being what you asked for, because it might be something else, and it usually is something better. Do you feel like you've resolved all your money issues?
No.
Really?
No.
I don't think anybody does.
Work in progress.
I mean, all the time. So, and that's something that I do like to make sure that people know when we do these shows. Even, I'm even when I'm doing the psychic stuff, I'm constantly polishing up my psychic stuff, as you are as well. But I feel like
always.
Yeah.
Never stop learning.
Right. So it's always a learning work in progress. So even with the money thing, even though that I've resolved it enough to where it flows really easily in, there's always, then you want to work on the more advanced level of pulling the money in, and then the more,
yes.
Yes.
So you and I have talked about this privately, but when I was transitioning from being a wedding photographer in Hawaii to, from Debbie Friedrich, the wedding photographer, to changing my name to Kayao, the spiritual medium, during that time, I did not have a flow of money. I did not. I was doing some photography, but I was very successful in my wedding photography business. And then, my successes are coming, and money is flowing now in my spiritual medium. But in between that time, when I was still hiding who I was and my abilities and not owning it, the money, of course, dwindled down. So that energy dwindled down, because I feel that I was unclear of what I was doing. And then there was that whole aspect of, as I'm learning, the going back and healing the old patterns, the old family patterns that we touched upon on that money show. So that I have absolutely worked through, and that I come out so much clearer, realizing those patterns were impressed upon me. Those weren't mine to carry forward. But
that's a whole different thing too, because now you're talking about getting into the healing field.
Yeah.
And when you get into the healing field, you're surrounded by a lot of times people saying, we barely touched upon this, but are you sure you should be charging? Like what? And then there's no set limit. Like there's no set how much you should charge for whatever. So you have people going, should you be charging for spiritual work? And then you have a lot of other people who, do you know a lot of healers who make good money at what they're doing, or like make a living doing healing work?
I do.
Okay.
I know. Yeah.
And see, I never have been surrounded by hardly any. I've been in the metaphysical. So that's to me very rare. So, and by a lot, I mean, would you say it's a good percentage? I mean, you're talking like 3, 4, 5, 10
people.
Yeah.
I feel so blessed. I have a great tribe.
Yeah.
That I feel so blessed, and people do well. Yes, people do well, but it wasn't always that way.
Yeah. Well, see, so getting into the healing field, I think it's hard for people to be around people who they've seen successful, who they can go, oh, if she did it or if he did it, I can. And it's easier to model, I think, your money relationship or resolve it in a career that's outside the box if you can look at success stories, I think. And I think in our industry, there's not as many.
I have to pause though and say that success means something different to everyone.
That's true.
So success doesn't mean you're a millionaire. Success doesn't mean
that can literally
things in life.
you could pay. Well, since we're talking about money, I was just talking about the money aspect, but that doesn't mean being a millionaire or anything, but for a lot of people who I know in the healing industry, they want to just be able to live, pay their light bill, pay their rent, whatever, and live on what they make as a healer. And I think that it's a hard cookie to get into sometimes.
It can be. So again, going back to when my own personal story, when I was unclear about what I was doing and fully owning my gifts and in that space. So my energy was low. My energy was not clear. I was not clear on how I was going to receive the money. So then therefore I did not. So talk about that flow of energy.
Confidence, was that any part of that?
Heck yeah. I was not confident. I was not confident because I was doing, my connecting kind of like on the down low and hiding. And everybody knows my story. I was a healer in hiding for years.
Because you did really well as a photographer. So you did really well. And then you were coming over and then you had to resolve issues, changing it.
Yes.
And that was the thing that, again, Bethany had said, it was like once she hit a certain level, it was the confidence. Same with me. I mean, once I hit a certain level, I was confident that I knew the paths and I knew how to, I don't even know how you'd say that, how to dictate the money flow or it just became easier. The more that you resolve the relationship with money, I think the flow becomes, I think that the more confidence that you have in that you're not feeling bullied by money. It becomes such a big entity to people that they start feeling bullied and pushed around by it, I feel. And then when you gain your confidence and you gain your awareness, I feel like where it's all big over here, then you become more balanced. And then as you resolve it more, then you become like stronger in your relationship where you feel like it can, you have more control.
Right. Like it does. And, and as you say that about being bullied with money and it reminds me that when talking about the patterns and the disengaging of the emotional aspect, as I healed my patterns and released the money bullying part, I saw in other people their money revenue wheel. So that's what I would call it. So I could see their revenues of money, like possible revenues. To me, I heard it was a revenue wheel, and I could see that. So it's not like you have just one thing that's going to bring you money.
No, I think that's
facets.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, if they're going to get into business, most everybody knows, I have a few different businesses, but even within those businesses, there's different avenue streams that come in. So I have more avenue streams in one. It's not like you have one business and one source of income. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I always see that on people, the revenue wheel, as you call it. As a psychic, it's very easy to see, and that actually helped me resolve my relationship with money. Now that you mention it, I never thought about that until just now, but because I would observe other people's relationship with money, and psychically I could see the resentment that they had, the struggle that they had, the feeling bullied by it, type of that non-confident feeling that they have. And I could always tell, I call it their money energy. You call it the money wheel. So I could always read people's money energy, and I would observe it, and I'd be like, okay, I don't want to do what that person's doing. Okay, yeah, I don't want to do what that person's doing. And then you would be around some people who did really well with money, and like I said, it didn't matter if they were millionaires or just came and went nicely in a way that they were comfortable with their life. And their money energy was completely different. Their money energy was, they didn't have, again, getting back to that relationship, they didn't have the toxicity. They didn't have the bullying factor. They didn't have the emotional attachment with money. They had more of a, I feel like, I can move it in, bring it in and move it out, and let it go out and feel good about it going out because I know it'll come back in. They had like a really healthy money energy, a really healthy relationship with pulling it in, but not feeling like they had to trap it there, you know? And that's always a bummer. I personally experienced that watching, like I said, my mother and some other people that I know, where they start pulling it in and then wanting to trap it there. And like I said on the show, I had fallen into that same trap myself when I started seeing it come in and knew I could bring it in really easy. And then I was bringing it in for the car, and then I never realized that it just kept building up and building up, and I wasn't really doing anything with it. And then it hit on me that I can't just trap the money, because it comes like a stagnant pool of energy, like a pool of water, you know? So you have to still, I was like, what am I waiting for? So you have to kind of let it flow in and flow out, because then it creates a nice cycle. But
that's what I found too. You know, giving to charity, or supporting other people in their business. I really saw that, like in using the money energy. As I gave, I very fluidly received.
Mm-hmm. And we've always done, we've done that for years with different things. But I do know when you're first starting out, and I do remember, you know, when you're going to the grocery store with $25 and a calculator, because they had calculators then, not your phone, and having to, you know, literally that's all the money that you had. You know, it's hard to give at that time, but when you do resolve the money energy and it starts coming in, then it's a lot easier too. But yeah, that was a struggle at that time. I think everybody has those. Not everybody, most people do, I think.
Most people do.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's okay, because it's actually a good thing, because you need contrast. Things can't be honky-dory all the time. You need that contrast.
Well, I just, now I'm on this new kick with money and empaths. Now I'm going to explore this more.
That's big. Seeing that's big energy, because it's like you have money, you have empaths, and there's this flow in the middle that if you can bring that together, because empaths feel so much, and it was hard to detach from the emotional aspect.
Yes.
Especially when you have, when you're working through healing from your past, which is attached to the whole money story. So and I know you're going to create that. Every time we talk, you're creating another class.
Yeah, we've got to stop talking, because I'm like running out of time.
Use.
Until I can clone myself. Yeah, but it is becoming a thing. It's growing and behind me as we speak, because the night before we did the podcast, the radio show, I dreamt all this relationship with money with empaths, and I started seeing a lot of patterns. And one of the interesting things that I found with myself that I would like to talk more about with empaths at another time, as I get into my empath class. I think I'm going to teach this on my empath class, really truthfully, because I think that money's always, if people can resolve the money issue, I feel like that's such a major stress in people's lives that it's easier to work on other parts of your life if you resolve that stress in your chest or your tummy.
Oh my God! As you say that, I can feel it in my heart. As you know, I'm extremely sensitive and in tune that way. And I know, because I work with so many healers, if money were not an issue, they would really love to just quit whatever, job that they're currently in, and follow their heart and use their gifts in the healing arts if money were not an issue. So that's a lot of times the common thread of them not fully coming into their gifts and using them is because, well, I need to pay the mortgage, I need food, I need to pay the bills. So if they can, I think a lot of the healers can really learn how to also navigate the flow of money and that energy and realize it is not a bad thing. this is the currency that we are currently using in the world for you to live, to be, to have a roof over your heads, food.
But it's not just healers, though. I mean, it's everybody.
True.
Yeah, it's not just healers. Because I feel now that we're talking about it, I'm realizing how much money blocks really keep people from moving forward in all aspects of their lives, because it keeps them from aligning up. It keeps them from, when you said pursuing what they really love, I realized as you're talking that it really does keep people from feeling happy. It really blocks people's happiness. And the reason for that is because it does keep people from doing things that they love, or things that they would truly enjoy, or taking a vacation or time off, or traveling here, or spending, even like everybody always, when my mother and father-in-law came out to visit, they're like, you sure go out to eat a lot. And I was like, I don't think we really do we? And they're like, oh yeah. And I couldn't even, what? But the interesting thing I found was, to me, I'm not thinking about it eating out a lot. I'm thinking about it's family time. So for instance, when we go out to eat, that's when we all gather. We have, my kids are all there, and, we're all there as a family. That's the time when everybody's schedule is not crazy, and we sit down and we laugh. There's no phones at the table. So to me, it's not like, I don't even view it as going out a lot, which is weird. I view it as, that's family time. That's like this bonding happiness time. So it makes me very happy. And truthfully, I don't even care if the food's good or not good or whatever. That never ever matters. It's always, I've paid for this family time, which I will do time and again. But yeah, money really keeps people from, or that feeling, that stress. It just keeps people, it makes them, and we didn't get into this as much, but the fear of not having it, the fear of not having stuff. So this cycle that people need to get out of is it actually is backwards, because they're so fearful that they have a hard time to release the money energy, and they want more control, and it makes them more tense. So then they keep making choices that go against the money flow, which is doing jobs that they hate. And, that gets into your whole money relationship, because if you stay in a place where you're unhappy and doing things that you hate doing, it will hinder your money flow. Absolutely, hands down. Talk about it all the time. But then I don't suggest people run out and quit their jobs either. They have to have a plan. You have to plan.
Right.
You don't not pay your bills and then just be like, well, something will come up, because this whole magical thing Jen was talking about, I'm thinking about it, so it's got to come in. It doesn't work like that. But yeah, it's interesting how much it blocks people's lives. But the empath thing that I was dreaming about, and that I was going to talk about, that I found very interesting, is the guilt that comes when empaths begin to make money. And I actually really struggled with that for a while. And I never realized until I had the dream right before the show that it had a lot to do with my empath abilities. And I thought, why? That's very odd. So when I started making money in business and being successful in business, I tripped myself up a few times, that I had to catch myself, because I found myself feeling guilty about it. And I thought, why am I feeling guilty of something I've worked so incredibly hard for? Like, it was weirding me out. So I was constantly trying to resolve this feeling of guilt. And I didn't want to tell people. Like, people would ask how things were going. Oh, they're going good. And then it got to the point where I could buy myself some things, or I was like more financially secure than I had been for my life, which I, as we know, had grown up very poor. And I wanted to hide it. I didn't want, like I was talking about on the show, I didn't want to tell people I'd bought my car. I wanted to hide. I found myself wanting to hide some of my successes. And I thought, what is wrong with me? That I knew that went against all money energy in my core being, because it felt like I was bottling my success, which then feels like your energy's bottled up inside, and you can't have that. You need to have it nicely flowing. And so I realized it was because when people would ask me or they would see me being successful, when I was around the people, a lot of people in my life were still struggling with money and still are. And not on purpose, but they would feel resentful or jealous or sad. I found a lot of times I would make them feel sad, not that they didn't love me and weren't happy for me, really truthfully, for my success, but it reflected internally onto them that they were feeling sad about their money situation. And so then I realized as an empath, I didn't like making them feel sad by my success. Yeah. So I felt like I had to hide it. And even talking about it makes me a little bit upset because there's some people in my life who I know of that I do trigger that in them. I make them feel upset and sad when they know I'm doing well. And I know, like I said, I know they love me, but I don't like that feeling. And so I really had to work on that's their stuff, not my stuff, and separation. And then I had to learn to just be me, enjoy. If they knew that I had the money to buy this or do that, I had to just start just being me, and they were going to have to resolve it. Because if I wasn't me and I wasn't able to enjoy my successes, I knew. So like, it's like I'd gone from poor to better to successful, but I want to be this successful. And I knew if I didn't resolve it to where I could just be myself, I couldn't hit the next level. So I've been actually working on that. So that I found interesting, but I know that that's directly related to me being an empath. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. That was kind of, I think that empaths have and can block themselves from being successful, and they can have a hard time with success. I think that's pretty common, which then you end up stopping your flow, you know? Yeah. So yeah. Have you ever had that happen yet with success? If you're surrounded by a lot of people who are being successful and doing well, you won't have that as much, because I do know also people who are very successful in their own right, and I can totally be myself as far as my success around those people. Like it's fun and freeing. You may be in a different situation, because I think you're surrounded by people that are more successful, than not.
Well, yeah, and again, success meaning many different things. I haven't had that feeling of feeling.
Well, what do you feel like is success? Like, let's just get into that. I mean, so what is success to you?
Gosh, success to me is not worrying about paying mortgage, having food, having, extra in the bank. Not if we want to go out to dinner, we go out to dinner. If I want to buy something, I can buy it, within our means. Just not worrying. And
that's success to me that's success to me as well. But you can tell people who are like that, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you can still tell who those people are, who they're feeling successful, or if they're feeling successful in their career. That's another thing to me. Like, I do feel successful in my careers that I have. And so you don't seem to be getting back to your question then, because I was just wondering, like, the different things of success. You feel like you're surrounded by more people that are accepting of that, so you haven't really had the thing, or not?
I haven't really felt bad for being where I'm at. And we're not living in a mansion, and and all of that, and we're comfortable.
That's really good. And so but that's something I think that as you go through the levels, everybody has to work on. They just have to work on feeling okay where they're at, or
right. And there's something that I want to touch upon that we didn't get to on the show also, and I'm hearing, is shame.
Shame. Oh, yeah.
That's huge. Shame around money. And I had a lot of shame around money, because again, when I was in transition from being a successful wedding photographer and, making good money, to not. I had this huge dip. I had a lot of shame around that. And that really stopped my flow as well. I had debt, all kinds of stuff. So there's shame around that as well. And then I had this realization.
So you felt like that was a block?
A huge block.
Okay.
Shame is a huge block. And it's not only a block, but then people don't talk about it.
Right.
People don't talk about their shame. And that is like block, and like not talking about it is like cementing the block.
Right.
So when you can kind of bust through, like, you know what, if whatever's going on, if you can lay it out, these are my numbers, talk to someone, talk to a financial person, go to the bank, you are then chipping away at that block. You are opening up that part, that energy that you kept so tight for those people who are feeling this and resonating, and just looking at your numbers with no shame. Like, this is where I'm at right now. How can I move past this? Or how can I, ease this? That alone, again, the awareness, shining the light on that chips away that block and helps to remove that.
Mm-hmm. So then you did your number stuff, and you sort of
did my numbers, paid off my debts, and gosh, that's a huge.
Yeah, that's a weight lifted.
That's a weight. Yeah, and you're just gonna have debts. Period. Well, not always. House, things like that.
Yeah.
In the business, but it's just having a healthy money mindset will really help remove the blocks of receiving. Mm-hmm. And shame keeps you solid in that block. So I'm speaking from experience. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't speak up. I didn't even tell my husband how much debt I was in at the time when we moved. Because when we moved back from Hawaii to San Diego, I kept getting flown back to Hawaii to photograph weddings. And then I was going back to learn and to fill up. And I started charging my trips, and there was no money to pay them back off. And then that's what happened. And then I didn't speak about it. And then that, not only was I blocking my money energy, I was feeling physical ailments from that. Whenever we have blocked energy, you feel, it's just like compounding. And then finally I had to say,
I know a lot of people that had gotten themselves into where they had gotten into debt or gotten into credit cards and felt shameful about it, didn't want to address it. And when they didn't want to address it or tell people or work through the numbers, it got worse and worse and worse. Yeah. So actually did get physically sick a lot of times. Eventually you have to resolve it. And then when you resolve it, you lift that energy. And then it changes your money energy. It changes how you're feeling. And that's when you can bring abundance in again, or that's when it resolves a lot of things energetically.
It does. And it did. And, that was a long time ago. And it's, gosh, it just feels so good. So I just really wanted to bring in that aspect, shame, because I know a lot of people can resonate with that, and there is no shame in it. Just get it out there, put your numbers out, look at them, and that alone, bringing awareness. I know it's like, oh gosh, and people are feeling that, but you have to.
I think that unless you're born with a trust fund, I think most everybody can relate to a lot of the things that we're talking about, because you have to figure it out. And those who do, I feel like, have a good money energy, and then they can tend to get where they want to be. And to get the top things that people want, freedom, happiness, more time,
good health.
Good health. I think that why people really go after the almighty dollars, because they feel like money can buy all those times, because you don't have to work as much, because you have things paid for, which gives you more freedom and more time, and more happiness, because you feel like you can be off work doing things that you enjoy doing or pursuing. And when you're happy and feeling relaxed because you're not having to work all the time, that then in turn brings you good health. So I think that that's why they seriously attach themselves to that. And I think that that's very common, and I think we've all done that. But then trying to resolve that will actually, when you start doing some of the things we talked about, which before we end the after show, I wanted to ask you, what do you feel like for you personally were the top things that helped you resolve your money issues to where you are today?
That's a great question.
Because everybody's going to be different.
Yeah. So for me, it was the awareness. First of all, awareness. Oh, I have a money block. That was number one. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know, that language around it. So the awareness, and then diving in, where did that come from? Where did that come from? Where did my beliefs around money come from? Looking at that, looking at how I was raised, healing that, because there's so much intertwined with the money story when you attach emotional aspect to it. So healing my healing past. And then for me, the huge thing was knowing that it's okay to receive money for where I'm at now, for using my spiritual gifts. It is so okay. And that I am worthy of receiving. Those were my huge blocks. Oh, and I'm seeing my husband, so I can't dismiss my husband's, just his healthy money outlook, relationship. Very, very healthy.
And it's funny, before I get into what mine were, it's so funny because my husband has worked a traditional job for a really long time, even though we did own a business with him, but he does physical things that people can see. And then I do these businesses that are, that are more online stuff. And, so I work from home and work out of my own office. And it's funny because I don't know how many years people just didn't even view me as being like I contributed to the money of the household at all. And still they're just like, oh yeah, her husband works. I'm like, hi, I do things, but they don't know what I do exactly. And they don't know how that whole thing works out because I don't punch a time card. And it's hilarious to me because in everybody's eyes, I don't really do anything. But anyways, so my biggest ones were, when I was younger, I realized there was so much money in the world. I couldn't understand why some of it couldn't flow into my life. So it was like, why? There's so much money in the world. I don't understand why, just why is it just supposed to be to some people? So I would constantly question. So I really could feel the abundance I started viewing how much money is really out there and the energy of money. And it felt big to me on a level. I could feel it through my chest. It felt like it was everywhere. And then I started trying to resolve my relationship with money as emotional energy. Why was I so attached to it? Why did I feel like it was so much bigger than me, that it had control over me? And so when I resolved it having control over me to, it wasn't this big bullying factor, and I released my emotional attachment to it and was just like, it's numbers. It's just numbers. It's just paper that's basically worthless. But I do need it to come in and out of my life, but I didn't make it this huge empowering thing. That changed a lot of stuff in my life when I realized it was attainable by me, and it was attainable by everybody if you just viewed it as attainable and not as pushing you around. That's a very strange analogy, but that's really how I viewed it. I viewed it as just more attainable, and there was a lot of it. And then when it started coming in, because I realized it was just basically numbers, then my last one was getting over the guilt of being successful. And successful to me was to be able to buy a car that I actually wanted, not that I could afford, and here's your 10 on the lot you can choose from. That was literally my most empowering, successful moment. I know I've talked about that a lot, but it'll stick with me forever because it's just like, that was such a cool thing for me.
Yeah.
And then just, you know, like you said, being able to go out to eat and spend family time with my kids and not have to, apparently I don't think about it at all because it was brought up to me that I have no concept of how much we eat out. And, you know, being able to just go in, to go into a store, whether it be a Target or, I don't know, another store, and see a shirt and not have to check my bank account. Like was successful to me. It felt good. So I think that we covered a lot, and we're going to try to do this again. Let's do this. We'll be back next week after do another after show. I enjoyed this. We have so much to talk about afterwards.
We do. So that's what happens, and that's how this came about, because we do our show, and thank you so much for inviting me to come on with you on SpiritChat. And then we do the show, and then after we talk to each other and like da, 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 and we thought, oh my gosh, we need to.
There's more juicy stuff here. And it was literally another show, half hour to an hour every single time, and it was like, why are we not recording this? Why is this not a show? So anyways, we'll be back, and we hope you enjoyed the after show. If you did, you can comment below, and we'll try to do this again, see how it works out. Or I guess we'll just record it for fun anyways.
Yeah.
Or record it for us, because we do it anyways.
Right.
All right, so we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jen.
Aloha. Bye.